Together, we can rule the galaxy.
How's it going, guys? John, the Basic Expert here, and welcome to another deep dive video into West End Games Star Wars D6. I'm really excited about this series and this game, which is why I'm making videos about it. Hope you enjoyed the little intro. I'm no Seth Skorkowski or anyone like that, but I just thought it'd be fun to maybe throw a little shade at 5e and celebrate Star Wars as well. Classic Star Wars, traditional Star Wars as well. So we are again talking about West End Games Star Wars D6. In the first video so far, this is the third video in the series of X amount. I don't know how many there will be, but the third in this series. The first one, we sort of talked about the history of West End Games and the creation of the Star Wars D6 system. In the second video, we talked about character templates. In this video, we are going to discuss creating your own character templates and then sort of the bare bones, chapter 2 of the West End Games Star Wars D6 game system. It's a very simple system. I want to say something about this game that I think is missing from modern role-playing games, and that is that this book is not big. This is like everything you need to play rules-wise in this book. And it's not this 250, 300-page book. I miss these days of where you didn't need these nothing against crunch. I know some people love their crunch, but to me, I feel like crunch gets in the way of role-playing, right? And you start getting more into board game territory as you start to incorporate more crunch into a game. So, and again, that's just my personal opinion. I know there's probably people out there that have a real mastery of a really crunchy system and are able to role-play in it just fine. It's just not my style. It's not my thing. But I love that this book is short. It's not long, and everything you need to play is pretty much in this book. Very easy, very simple to use. So, before we do that, though, I want to talk about this video sponsor. It's a channel sponsor, Neckbeardia. Go to neckbeardia.co.uk. Link will be in the video description. Use code TBE10 and get 10% off your order there, and you help support the channel. Neckbeardia specializes in 3D miniatures, very well sculpted miniatures, I might say. I really like the OSR miniature there as well. I'm probably going to order that one myself because it looks pretty awesome. But they're a UK-based company. They sell miniatures. They sell some digital products. Atomic Punk is on there as well for sale if you want to purchase it from there. So if you use code TBE10 at checkout, you get 10% off your order and you help support the channel as well. And that means a whole lot to me. So, yeah, check them out. They're a sponsor of the channel. You help them. They have an awesome YouTube channel as well. And you help my channel and what I'm doing here as well. So check that out. So before we get into the bare bones of the rules of the West End Games Star Wars D6 system, let's talk about creating your own character templates. Character template creation is very simple. It's very quick. It's very easy. And it's something that I think most players do. In some of my last videos, a lot of people commented saying, we didn't even use the ready-made templates in there. And there's 24 different templates that a player could essentially use. There were a lot of people that said we didn't even use those templates. Every time we played this game, made their own template, which is awesome. So players have 18 dice that they can apply to the attribute scores of their characters, and force points or force skills as well. Force skills also take out of that 18. And so if you're trying to master all 3 force skills, you're going to only have 15 dice available for the rest of the attribute scores. No score can have less than 2D and more than 4D when you do it this way. And so you got to keep that in mind as well. And you can break up a dice into pips. So pips can be the +1s, the +2s, and +3s. And those pips a dice is broken up into 3. So let's say you have 18 and you break up one dice into 3 pips and you put in like your strength or something like that, you put 2D plus 3, right? You want to make sure you're going to be pretty consistent in that role. So that's part of the design element of it, and how exactly you want to customize your character. I think that's pretty neat. That's pretty cool. So yeah, a dice can be broken up into 3 pips or be used as a full 6-sided dice in attribute skill roll. After you've made your attributes, you then pick equipment for your character, and the rules are pretty loose in what your character can and can't pick. You can choose to pick a starship if you want, but the rules specify if you choose that you have a starship, make sure that your character has debt to go along with that starship. So you're going to want to do that as well. And it also says if you're picking, don't get greedy. It tells players to not get greedy. If you have too much stuff, too much awesome stuff on your character sheet, the GM is going to just strike it, and it gives GMs the ability to do that. The GM's word is final, it's law. If he says that, no, you cannot have that awesome blaster, no, you can't have that awesome blaster, no, you can't have that spaceship with that amount of debt, you need more debt or no ship. That's the rule. That's the final thing. And I like that part because I like rules when they specify your DM is the final arbiter of what is and isn't on your character sheet and what you can and can't do at the table as far as your character is concerned. Yes, it's not that he's being a tyrant, but this person's taking time out of their day to run a game for you. You should be kind enough to sort of fit the game world that they're trying to run or the vision that they have for the campaign, at least a little bit. Try and get involved, try and go along with it. As long as they're not being a jerk about it, go along with it. So I like that aspect. It's something that's sorely lost in the hobby today, where I think that a lot of power has been removed from the game master, from the DM, and given to players, and I'm not a fan of that mentality that seems to be prevalent. And it doesn't matter because even today they still have in the textbook, in the rule books, that the referees, the game master, the dungeon master's ruling is final, and you still have players that want to argue with their DM about their character. So it is what it is, but regardless, I like that it gives players the ability to sort of pick what their character has that makes sense to them. It gives a lot of trust to the players, but tempers it with the referee has final say. So after you've given your character the starting resources that they're going to have, you then can apply the 7 dice that you normally would. You can customize the template further by using that 7D to customize your character, like we discussed in the last video. Go and check that one out. I'm not gonna go over it here. If you want to know how that works, go to the last video and watch how customizing a template works. But you can apply those 7D to the skills of your choice using those rules as you normally would. And again, I think that's pretty cool. If you have a cool template, it really again creates a cool community around that, and you might make something really cool that other players might want to check out, and you could share that with other play groups online, all that kind of stuff. So character template creation is not that much more work than using a template. It's pretty quick and easy, and I love games like that are pretty quick and easy to make a character. And I like games where it takes like 15-20 minutes to make characters and then we can start playing. I don't like games where a majority of the first session is spent with everyone trying to figure out how to make a character. I know some people like that. It is not for me. So with that, let's talk about the bare bones and the rules as they are presented in Chapter 2, entitled The Bare Bones. You have attributes and skills, so every character has a die code, which we just talked about. If you're creating your own template or using a template, every character has a die code. So if it says 3D plus 1 on your strength, and you're going to do a roll where you need to roll your strength, you're going to roll 3d6 plus, and you're going to add 1 to the roll in order to be successful or not. There are potentially opposed rolls in the game. In that case, let's say you're wrestling with someone and it's a strength check versus strength check. It's really simple. Whoever rolls the highest on that roll is the winner of that contest. Or you're rolling against difficulty numbers. There's a set list of difficulty numbers that you have to target. Sometimes you know what the target number is, sometimes you don't. It's up to the game master to determine whether or not you would know that or not, how hard or difficult it might be. Like if you're repairing the starship's hyperdrive engine, you might know, like, this thing's pretty damaged. I know it's going to be, I know that because I'm really good at fixing these things and I'm skilled in it, the game master might say, you know this, and looking at this, you think it would be a difficulty number of 10, let's say, to fix the hyperdrive. And so now you know when you roll your die code for whatever skill you're using to repair that hyperdrive engine, you know that you got to roll a 10 or better. So that's how essentially difficulty numbers work. If you're familiar with most modern role-playing games, even 5th edition uses target or difficulty numbers, difficulty check numbers, you're going to be familiar with this concept, and it's not going to be alien to you at all. Very simple. How long does it take to use a skill? It takes, under most circumstances, most attributes and combats take 1 combat round or 5 seconds. There's some things that might take longer, and it's up to the game master to sort of determine what that is, what it would be. You can take an extra turn or an extra round to prepare what you're doing. Let's say you want to aim your blaster and you really want to make sure that you are going to land that shot. You can do nothing for a particular combat round as you're sitting there trying to aim your blaster, and the next round that comes around, your ability with the blaster, because you took the time to aim, will be the die code, the skill code with that, will be increased by 1d. So if your blaster skill is 3d and you take your time to aim, it is going to be 4d the next round because you sat there trying to aim to shoot the stormtrooper with your blaster pistol or something like that. So I like that it has that ability. It kind of makes you choose tactically players what they want to do exactly. So especially if they're not sure they're going to make that hit just shooting, I want to take my time to shoot. But that means that something might happen to me because you can't move, you can't shoot, you can't do anything else but sit there and aim, for instance, if that's what you're doing. Or if you are trying to maybe repair a computer panel while there's blaster bolts flying by, you can't really do anything but focus on repairing that panel until the next round when you can make your check and maybe roll a little better on the next round than you would in the initial round. So that's also a cool little rule that I like as well. Running is an important part as well. If your character is running and you try to use a skill like shoot your blaster while you're running, your skill die code is going to be decreased by 1d. So for example, if you, in the rules it gives here, your blaster skill is 3d plus 1, you dash across the hall firing at a stormtrooper, you roll 2d plus 1 when you fire. Wounds, if you are wounded, when you have to use a skill, your skill code is reduced by 1d. So example, if you're wounded, your blaster skill goes from 3d plus 1 when you fire down to 2d plus 1. There are no hit points in Star Wars D6. Essentially, there are different levels of being damaged that you kind of go through, and you can use med packs and other things like back to tanks to get yourself back up to healthy. But I really kind of like that aspect. It's less record keeping. You're keeping track of a state of health rather than numbers, which is quite nice. And it kind of adds to a more cinematic feel, which is what West End game Star Wars D6 is really trying to do. It's trying to feel like a Star Wars movie, like you're in the movies rather than super crunchy number accounting simulator, which sometimes a lot of games can kind of feel like. If you're using more than one skill, you also have the issue of reducing dice by 1d. So let's say you want to shoot and then shoot again. The first one, let's say again, our blaster code is 3d plus 1 for shooting our blaster. Our first shot is going to be 3d plus 1. Our second shot is going to be 2d plus 1. And if we try and shoot again, it's going to be 1d plus 1. And obviously beyond that, we're not going to be able to shoot. So this is where characters leveling up becomes more important. And using skill points to increase your character. Increasing the dice pools that you have for, let's say, your blaster skill will mean that you can take more shots, you can do more things, and the 1d reduction isn't going to penalize you as much. It's going to be a little bit before it really starts to impinge and penalize your character for trying to do multiple things in a combat round. Combat is divided into action segments, so you have to sort of declare what you're going to do, and then within each segment, a character can either move or use a skill. Reactions do not use up, don't take up time when you use them. For instance, you're getting shot at and you dodge. If you've used a previous skill in that round, you will reduce that die code by 1, but it doesn't take up time, meaning that like, oh, I dodged that stormtrooper shooting his blaster at me, now I can't shoot back. Initiative. There is a little section on initiative, but initiative is a little different. So it's not probably what you are expecting it to be, I guess. So with initiative, generally it doesn't really matter who goes first. Everyone's sort of moving and shooting at the same time. The only time it matters is when what someone is doing would affect what someone else is doing. And the example in the book that it gives is character A is shooting at character B and vice versa. So they're both shooting at each other. Whose shot goes off and first? Well, it's going to be who rolls the highest. Who rolls the highest for their attack roll? If character A rolls higher than character B, then character A's blaster fire goes off first, and if that attack hits and damages or incapacitates character B, then that will keep that from happening, or it will affect that skill use. So, for instance, if I don't know, you're able to blast someone and you do so much damage to them that you kill that stormtrooper that was going to shoot at you. If you rolled higher than the stormtrooper, you killed the stormtrooper. The stormtrooper does not get his attack at you because your shot went off first. The question that might arise, and it gives an example here in the rules, is what happens if a character is moving and you're shooting at a moving character? And will your blaster fire affect if the character can move or not? You're going to have that character use their dexterity skill since there's no movement die code in Western Game Star Wars D6. So I'm shooting at this character that's running. I'm going to roll my blaster pistol or blaster skill. They're going to roll their dexterity die code and compare who has the highest. If I roll higher and hit this person that's running, it may affect their ability to flee the scene if that's what they're doing, for example. There are rules for movement, so characters can walk up to 5 meters in a round or run up to 10 meters in a round, so double the speed. Although Western Game Star Wars D6 is very much focused on theater of the mind as far as play is concerned. So while these are precise numbers, that is not 100% strict in that sense. The rules are very clear that if the referee says that you can get from point A to point B within one segment, within one turn, then you can do it. If he says you need to run, then that's what it is. The game master's ruling is final. His word is final. So there is that. If you're walking, you can turn left and right in any direction within those 5 meters. If you are running, you can only turn 90 degrees at most in that regard, because you're moving a little bit faster. Obviously, it takes a little bit of time to slow down, lose momentum, and turn more than 90 degrees, which is kind of what they're trying to simulate here. You have different stances that you can take too. You can fall prone. You can stand up. When you crawl, it makes a skill. When you crawl, your skill codes are reduced by 1d, just like a running character. Getting up from a prone position is an action, but it does not take an action to fall to the prone position. There's no penalty or anything like that. But it can be at the end of your movement, for example, and it's considered part of your movement. Shooting, you're given some ranges here. Every weapon has different ranges involved with it. So a blaster pistol is going to have a different range than a blaster rifle. But regardless of what that distance is, all of those distances are broken up into point blank range, which means you have to roll 5 or better. So pretty good chance that you can do it. Short range, which is 10 or better. Medium range, which is 15 or better, or long range, which is 20 or better. And again, different weapons are going to have different ranges or different distances for what is point blank, what is short, what is medium, and what is long. So players are going to need to keep that in mind and be aware of what weapons they're using, but also it's going to be different for whatever weapon the enemy they're shooting at is using as well. So if you look at the rules, you might be going, John, the weapons have like what looks like damage codes that are designed to reduce hit points. For instance, the heavy blaster pistol deals 5d damage. What's up with that? Well, when you get shot in Western Game Star Wars D6, let's say I am shooting this character with a heavy blaster pistol. It deals 5d. I'm going to roll my 5d for the damage, and the character is going to roll their strength die code in response. And badly you injure the target, or how badly I injure the target, is going to depend on the two rolls. So if the strength roll is greater than the damage roll, The character is just stunned that I hit, because he still hit, he's still struck, but it's just a stunning shot, for instance. If the damage roll is greater than or equal to the strength roll, but less than 2 times the strength roll, he's wounded. So for instance, I roll my 5D and I roll a 10, and they roll their strength and they roll a 9. They are wounded, but it is not. It is greater or equal to the strength roll, but it is not double it. So they're simply wounded. If the damage roll is at least 2 times the strength roll, but less than 3 times the strength roll, they're incapacitated. So let's use that example again. I roll a 10 for my damage, and they roll a 5 for their strength. Now they are incapacitated. They've been shot, they've fallen down, they're incapacitated. Damage roll at least 3 times strength roll. So let's say I roll a 12 for my damage roll, and they roll a 4. They are going to be mortally wounded. And so the amount of success versus failure between the 2 rolls is what's going to determine what state the character falls into in regards to taking damage, or how damaged they would be. Now you might be wondering, what does each state of damage come with penalty-wise? So I think it's best just to read straight from the book in this regard. So the book says, a stunned character falls prone and can't do anything for the rest of the combat round. A wounded character falls prone and can't do anything for the rest of this round. Anytime he rolls skill or attribute dice, his code is reduced by 1d. A wounded character who is wounded again is incapacitated. So if you are already if you're already wounded and then you get wounded again, you are going to be incapacitated. An incapacitated character falls prone and is unconscious. He can't do anything at all until healed. An incapacitated character who is wounded or incapacitated again is mortally wounded. A mortally wounded character falls prone and is unconscious. He can't do anything until healed. Worse yet, at the end of every combat round, he must roll 2d. If his roll is less than a number of rounds, since he's been mortally wounded, he dies. So, you roll 2d. Let's say you've been mortally wounded for 3 rounds. You roll a 2. I'm sorry, Timmy, your character is dead. Pick a new template, or make a new template and make a new character. Characters get dodge abilities as well. So how does it go about? Like, you have these target numbers to hit, and dodge rolls are a useful skill. So it is a specific skill that you have on your character sheet. So when someone fires at you, you roll your dodge dice. The number you roll is added to the difficulty number. So let's say the difficulty number is 10, and you roll a 5 for your dodge roll. The difficulty number to hit you is now 15. The person shooting you with their weapon now has to roll a 15 or better in order to hit you. If you roll poorly, obviously it's not as good. If you roll really well, it makes it a lot harder to hit you. If after the target number is modified or changed, and they hit you, that's when obviously damage is rolled. So you have some skills for archaic and unusual weapons. This would be out of date stuff like traditional firearms, or it lists Chewbacca's bowcaster as another type of weapon. You have hand-to-hand combat. You have rules for grenades. Then you have skill points. So this is probably one of the more interesting things that we could talk about in here that might be of real interest to people. So you have, at the end of every adventure, the game master may assign you skill points. The better you did in the adventure, is what I'm just reading from the book here, the more skill points you receive. You get them for doing great deeds or for outwitting your opponent and playing your role well. So these are points that you can apply to improve skills that you already have, or skills that you maybe want to improve that you currently are not trained in. This is how you get your dice pools to be bigger, and eventually down the line be able to do more things in regards to more actions in a combat round. Obviously, the bigger your dice pool is, as we discussed, that 1d penalty of doing more things in a round becomes less and less significant, making you a little bit more heroic, and you can start to maybe feel a little bit more like Han Solo or Luke Skywalker or Chewbacca when you start doing lots of crazy, cool shooting multiple stormtroopers in every round kind of stuff. It can maybe get a little out of control in the higher level game, but it's just the power creep is a problem in a lot of role-playing games. It's not unique to West End Games Star Wars D6. I'm sorry, this West End Games Star Wars D6 has nothing on level 1 5e characters in my opinion. So there's that. So how do you increase a skill? So you can spend skill points to increase your skill codes. You never increase your attribute scores or tribute codes. To increase a skill code by 1 pip, you must spend as many skill points as the number before the D. So for instance, I'm going to read the example here from the book because they're just good examples. I have to say, the prose of the West End Games Star Wars D6 is very well written. I've caught a few typos in it. What book doesn't have typos in it? It doesn't have its issues, editing issues. It's just humans wrote books, and there's going to be humans read over and edited the book, so there's going to be mistakes. I don't fault books for that. But it's very well written, and I feel like it's very easy to understand. This is, in my opinion, a game that I think, and this is again side note to everything we're talking about here. This is a game that I think a lot of players and newbies will be able to easily pick up and play and have a good time playing. So, increasing a skill of 2D costs 2 skill points. Increasing a skill of 5D plus 1 costs 5 skill points. Increasing a skill of 3D plus 2 costs 3 skill points. When you increase a skill by 1 pip, a skill with no plus goes to plus 1. A skill with plus 1 goes to plus 2, and a skill with plus 2, a plus 2 skill loses its plus, but increases the number before the D by 1. So I was mistaken in my last thing where I said there was a possibility of a plus 3. I guess that is not the case. But regardless. So you're going to get plus 1s or plus 2s. So you have to increase the pips, which costs a dice or costs a skill point before the D. So hopefully that makes sense. I like this system. It kind of, I think, suits well for a long-term campaign, in my opinion. So, because to me, the problem, and it was a struggle I had with Cowpunchers, which is a dice pool game, very similar. You're counting successes. You're not adding the number on the dice together to get a one large number. But dice pool games, I feel like, have a real problem in controlling the dice pool so that characters feel like they're improving, but they don't become overly powerful too quickly. You don't want that to happen. So I appreciate this system in that it feels like to me, looking at it, that, and from what I've experienced, that it is a system that kind of keeps that power creep in check a little bit, and it can help you have a long running campaign that could be a really good time, because nobody wants to. I think overpowered characters occurring too quickly can quickly lead to the campaign ending, because it just feels like it must. It feels like it should. The referee, the game master, the DM is having too hard of a time challenging its players because they just mow through everything that's thrown at them. So I like that it's a little, you got to earn it here in West End Games Star Wars D6. All right, the next concept, or the final concept, is the Force. This is Star Wars after all. So what would it be? It wouldn't be Star Wars without having the Force. And the Force, we've already talked about this. Every character has the ability to trust the Force. Every character has a Force point. I won't go over that in this video. We'll go, if you're interested in how that mechanic works, I talk about it in the last video on templates. There are also Force powers, and Force powers function much like the skill code, skill die code for all the other skills like blaster and stuff like that. Most characters do not have Force powers, though. This is the original trilogy Star Wars. There's not Force users just running around everywhere. Not everyone's able to use the Force. This is before midichlorians even. So this is pure original trilogy Star Wars. The Force is rare. It's a little more subdued, and it's not this like jumping around doing flip stuff like we saw in the prequels. And it's not this like, oh my God, I'm just automatically amazing at the Force like it is in the sequel trilogy for Star Wars. So that's partly what I like about it. It's kind of a low magic setting in a lot of instances because of the way that the original trilogy is structured and its tone, and these rules, I think, reflect that spectacularly. So characters that use the Force, though, are bound by strict Jedi code. So The only way a normal non-Force user is going to gain dark side points is if they trust to the Force but use it for evil, or for I want to trust the Force to shoot all these orphans. Like, yeah, you're going to get a dark side point, Mr. Smuggler. But Jedis get dark side points anytime they do evil. They don't have to just trust to the Force to do it, but like anytime they do something evil, they will get a dark side point. So they have a strict code that Jedi characters that Force users must live by. So they're listed here. It says you may not kill except in self-defense or the defense of others. You may not act for personal gain of wealth or power. You must never act from hatred, anger, or fear, or aggression. You have lightsabers. It's a special, different type of melee weapon than anything else. You have to use your lightsaber skill to use it. You don't use the traditional melee weapon skill with a lot of the other all the other templates and characters might have. You can parry with a lightsaber. Lightsabers can obviously, you can use the Force powers to deflect blaster bolts back at people. They can cut through other melee weapons. If you are attacking someone who's like just using a traditional sword at you, and you have a lightsaber, obviously your lightsaber is going to cut through it. And the Force is divided into 3 sort of sections. You have control. With the control Force powers, you can control your hunger, your pain, thirst, exhaustion, things like that. It can help the rules say you can help your immune system to defeat poisons and disease. You have your sense abilities. So this is how you feel the ebb and flow of the Force. You can sense things. You can tell how badly hurt someone is. You can sense other life forms. This is a skill that allows you to deflect blaster bolts back at people or just away from you with your lightsaber. And then you have the alter skill. And the alter skill is one that allows you to levitate objects and use like your Jedi mind tricks on other people, those sorts of things. And it has a little section here which is kind of cool. It says other skills, and it says it is rumored that there are skills beyond the first 3. Historical records say the ancient Jedi Knights had powers far beyond the ken of modern life. But since their august order has disappeared from the galaxy, the methods they knew and disciplines they used are now unknown. And I kind of like this little thing because it kind of leaves it open to like, the Force is this mystical, interesting thing that can do lots of different things, and it's up to you as the game master to maybe decide if there's more skills out there that players can learn. Again, this is original trilogy. This is before the prequels, before midichlorians, before any of that stuff. And so this Star Wars and the Force was still this interesting, mysterious thing that even fans didn't know all that much about. They knew the basics of how Jedi had to control their emotions and whatnot, the dark side and the light side. But there was none of this, again, midichlorians. There was none of this, you're a clone, a Palpatine clone of a granddaughter. Like, none of that stuff. This idea that the Force was inherently genetic to characters as well is not present here. So, and I like that, because this is the Star Wars I grew up watching. This is the Star Wars I fell in love with. And I have to say that reading this book has really made me fall in love with Star Wars again, just like reading this book. It's the original trilogy is just so obviously great and iconic, and so reading something about just the original trilogy and written with love and just love for that IP, that world, that movie, those movies, I don't know, it means a lot to me to read it. I really enjoyed reading this book. That is this video for West End Games Star Wars D6. Kind of a longer one, but I wanted to cover a lot of ground and talk about a lot of stuff here. Kind of cover the basics of the game, character template creation, as well as, again, the basic rules as to what you'll be using. We get into more detail later in the book, but the basic rules that you use in regards to playing the game. They're very simple, very straightforward, and I like that. I like games like that. I like the games where it's more focused on having fun than doing accounting and record keeping to the max. Those are very necessary things that you need to do. Every game needs record keeping and accounting and management and those sorts of things, but sometimes it can get a little out of hand. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like what I do, please check out my Subscribe Star. Supporters there get an adventure a month. They get, some of them get a dungeon map a week. So you get some goodies there as well. higher tier supporters get cool stuff like Atomic Punk, and any big project that I do, they get it for free as well. So make sure you check that out. And they get all the previous tiers as well. You can support on Subscribestar. You can support on my Guilded server. Link is in the video description on my link tree. Or you can support here on YouTube if you wish as well. You can just click the join button and you can support the channel that way as well. If you do so, I really appreciate it. You can be some of the people with your name at the end of the video, like over here when the video ends, you always see their names come up. So I really appreciate my supporters. I really appreciate people that believe in me and what I'm doing and the things that I'm talking about and trying to do, both in the hobby and talking about some games that need to be talked about, that more people need to learn about and know that exist. So thank you for watching. I don't know if we'll be talking about Star Wars D6 next week, but if not, it'll probably be an interesting subject. Tune in on Mondays for live streams. Usually Victor Gorchev and myself are talking about something, or we have a guest and we're interviewing someone. So it's always a good time. So make sure you check that out. Until next time, guys, talk to you later. Peace out.